You ever play a game that makes you stop for a second and go, yo, how did this come from an indie studio? Because that was me the entire time playing Replaced. This game has been in development for years, got delayed multiple times, and after finally getting my hands on it, and what's crazy is, I don't even really play indie games like that, but something about Replaced immediately grabbed my attention the first time I saw it. Maybe it was a retro sci-fi aesthetic. Maybe it was a Blade Runner vibes. Or maybe it was because it reminded me of games like Inside and Limbo, two of my favorite side scrollers ever. But either way, this game had me hooked. But before we get into all that, if you enjoy reviews, deep dives, and gaming content like this, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all the support. Now, let's get into Replaced. So, for those who don't know, Replace is a 2.5D side-scrolling action platformer game developed by Sadcat Studios and published by Thunderfall Publishing. The game was originally revealed back in 2021, and it instantly caught people's attentions because visually there was nothing else looking like this. But the game ended up going through multiple delays during development. And part of that was because developers were heavily affected by the war in the Ukraine and had to relocate parts of the studio during production. And after actually playing the game, yeah, you can tell a lot of love and detail went into this project. Now, story-wise, but no spoilers, you play as Reach, an AI trapped inside a human body in this alternate version of America after a massive nuclear catastrophe. This game takes place in Phoenix City, this dark, cyberpunk-inspired world filled with corruption, underground crime, conspiracies, and people trying to survive. And from the moment the game starts, the atmosphere immediately pulls you in. This game is pure vibes. Like if Blade Runner, Inside, and Limbo all together were fused into one game. The 1980s sci-fi setting is absolutely incredible. Neon signs glowing everywhere, rainy streets, giant futuristic buildings, old school technology mixed with futuristic tech. Bruh, this game is dripping with style. And I'm not even gonna lie, for an indie side-scroller, I expected the graphics to look maybe cool, but this, I wasn't expecting it. The lighting in this game is insane. The shadows, reflection, environmental detail feels alive. And somehow, these 16-bit characters blended perfectly into these detailed, realistic environments. That shouldn't work as well as they do, but it does. There were legit moments where I stopped moving just to look at the world around me. That's how good the art direction is. A lot of the time, there really isn't much music playing in the background, which actually works in the game's favor because it lets you hear the world itself. You hear trees moving in the wind, distant machinery, and footsteps echoing throughout buildings. It all adds immersion, but when the soundtrack does kick in, yeah, those 80s synth tracks hit different. And one thing I absolutely love was finding music scattered throughout the whole world and loading it into this retro futuristic music player that basically looks like a Walkman mixed with an iPhone. I'm not even joking. I would find songs and just stand there and listen to them because the soundtrack is that damn good. The music gives the game this weird nostalgic feeling while also sounding futuristic at the same time. It's kinda hard to explain, but just know it's fire. Now, gameplay wise, if you play games like Inside or Limbo, you understand the structure immediately. You've got platforming, environmental puzzles, exploration, all that stuff you expect from a side-scrolling game. But the thing that surprised me the most, the combat. Man, listen, the combat in this game is fun. Simple, yeah, but satisfying as hell. When enemies attack, you'll see this little dodge indicator pop up over their heads, and if you time it correctly, you can counter them. And once you get surrounded by multiple enemies and start bouncing between attacks, dodging and countering everybody, bruh, you feel like an absolute badass. Especially when you hit that flow state and everything starts clicking. Now, I do have one issue with the combat though. Sometimes during larger fights, your character kinda blends in with the enemies and it gets kinda hard to track where you are on the screen, but there were definitely moments where things got a little chaotic. Ironically though, there's actually one section later in the game where blending into crowds becomes part of the gameplay, which was actually pretty cool. Also, one tiny nitpick, I kinda wish enemies could accidentally hit each other if you dodged their attacks at the right time. That would have made the combat even crazier. But again, that's just me nitpicking. But one thing I genuinely wasn't expecting, stealth sections. These sections had me stressed, like I almost had anxiety attacks. But I love them. They switch up the pacing really well and make the world feel dangerous. And speaking of the world, read the notes, seriously. There are lore notes, files, and hidden details everywhere throughout Phoenix City, and that fleshes out the world in a huge way. The game dives into conspiracies, cult-like groups, corrupt systems, references to Nixon, corporations basically controlling society. There's so much lore packed into this world. I would not be mad at all if we got a sequel or even a spin-off, because there's no way they can explore everything this universe has to offer in just one game. Now, the game definitely isn't perfect. Some of the animations can kind of feel a little janky, especially when grabbing ladders or transitioning between movements, but thankfully, it never became game-breaking or anything like that. And honestly, for $20 and around 10 to 12 hours of gameplay, depending on how you play, you really can't beat that. Especially when you consider how much atmosphere, detail, and passion was poured into this game. Replace feels like one of those indie games people are going to look back on years later and say, yeah, that game is special. Even if you normally don't play indie games like me, I genuinely think this game is worth checking out. Have y'all played Replace? And if you have, what do you think about it? If you made it this far into the video, I appreciate you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying content like this. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.